This is a map showing Arabia in the 6th century, where again here is Mecca, and now here is Yathrib, which was the earlier name of Medina. The name was changed to Medina at some unknown date by an unknown process. The word Medina occurs several times in the Quran. However, none of those unambiguously refer to Yathrib, except maybe in one instance. The term Medina has an interesting parallel in Hebrew, where the official name of the state of Israel is Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel. So Medinat in Hebrew, which is the exact same word in Arabic, Medina, appears to mean state in Hebrew, and that's an interesting observation. But if we explore the root of the term, we see it's related to deen, which is taken by Muslims to refer to one's religion. So a person's deen is their religion. Yet if we look at other aspects of the word, we see, digging deeper, that the meaning of it as religion is derivative and the original meaning is different. And that can be attested by the word dan in Hebrew, which refers to a judge, and the term daynuna, or even deen, as in Yom ad-Din in the first surah, the opening prayer of the Quran, where it refers to the day of judgment. So referring to it as a word concerning with judgeship and law is more appropriate. And the extended term for the prophet's city, because Medina also means city, so it's commonly today in the Arab world, if you refer to Al-Madinah, you're talking about a city or the city. It is called Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, which is like the enlightened city. But it might more appropriately be described as the enlightened community, or the enlightened community ruled by a particular law. And so that's where we get the change in name to Medina, where the Prophet migrated to. As we said, Arabia was a large region of hundreds of different tribes and clans, which were all independent of each other and were not subsumed under any central authoritarian rule. And the primary political achievement of the Prophet Muhammad was to unite all of these disparate tribes under a single rule. And that became a remarkable achievement that he achieved. After some time, of course, when Arabia slipped out of the hands of the declining caliphate, the tribes went back to being what they had always been, and so everything kind of relapsed into a constellation of competing tribes that each had their own territory and so on, and were like competing states in other competing state situations. So the city of Mecca, where Muhammad was born, is described as a caravan station on the trade routes between Syria and the Mediterranean to the north and Yemen to the south. Now, this theory about the trade status of Mecca has been challenged by certain anti-Muslim historians like Patricia Crona. And although in general I do not like her or her work, and she's just like a dog with a bone and goes too far every time she makes an attack on something. But on the other hand, sometimes some of this type of critique is useful also. And in this case, one might wonder why a overland route for caravan trade would exist when the Red Sea was right next to there as a much more convenient route. Down to this day, sea trade has always been much, much cheaper than land trade. And the transport of stuff by sea has just been, from very ancient times, more economical than the transport of stuff by land, because the sea, basically, storms notwithstanding and shipwrecks notwithstanding, is a great big flat water highway, and is not inhabited by inhabitants whose permission you have to get and to whom you have to pay tribute or taxes or protection money to go through. this basic difference is so significant, the sea is just better. Nevertheless, there was some kind of trading going on, and even Patricia Krona acknowledges that there was some kind of local trade at least. Furthermore, Arabia was on the rise. This was a time when Arabia burst forth into civilized significance after centuries of marginal insignificance, and we can point to many examples of places where that kind of thing has happened in the history of the world. So that wouldn't be surprising. It also had a pre-existing religious center which housed the Kabbah, God's holy house. And that, according to the Quran, was founded by Abraham and his son Ishmael. And so it had a monotheistic origin, which later became corrupted by the placement of idols in it. But in any case, it was primarily a center of idol worship at the time of the Prophet was growing up. There were also Jewish and Christian communities using the Arabic language living in Arabia, but none are attested at Mecca itself. That doesn't mean they weren't there, however. It might be that they were, and the tradition does not record them. Of course, there were a few people who had become Christians at Mecca, such as Khadija's relative Warqa ibn Nawfal, who is present there to validate his revelation at the beginning of this history. But then these Christian people disappear and are not mentioned again almost immediately after that. So that in Mecca, Muhammad encounters only pagans.